Welcome to Grounded's homeschooling crash course. We've got Emily Baginski and Leah Allen, a pair of friends and moms and educators. So they're gonna walk us through some homeschooling tips today. So we're gonna wait a few more minutes and let people filter in, and then we'll get chatting.
I love it. Well, thank you, Emily, for being here. It's you've been doing this by choice for a long time, and I think so many people we're all just in this same kind of boat. Like, wait, I'm a homeschooler now, and how do I do this? And I think there's a lot of feeling of being overwhelmed, and hopefully today in our conversation we can kind of just take a breath and just hear from you about your experience, and just know that we're really, all of us, so many people, millions of us are all in this together right now in this same kind of unprecedented situation. And
that's right. Well, my goal today is just to have everyone that's meeting with us come away feeling encouraged and less overwhelmed, and encouraged that we're all in this together. And some of us are suddenly homeschooling, which is very different from choosing to homeschool and planning out all summer what you might like to do. So I really hope that we'll come away feeling like you've got this, as you really do. As parents, I think we really are equipped, and it really is a matter of perspective and grace for ourselves and one another. And it's, hopefully through the season, our families will be knitted more closely together, and hopefully even our community will be likewise knitted closely together. In true homeschooling form, I'm going to tell my kids to quiet down. Just 1 second.
Nice.
I'm live. Thank you.
I love it. My kids, in true newbie homeschool form, are very excited that they can watch a PBS show right now.
I love it. That is great. That is great.
Awesome. Looks like we got another person on the call. Hi, Ed. We're going to let a few more folks filter in and then get started. So we'll start probably with a free form
in the background, guaranteed.
What's that? Oh, we'll have a free form conversation between you two, and then we'll open it up for questions probably at the end, just to let the folks who are coming in know what's happening.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'll let you guys keep on chatting. And my fur child, my cat, has escaped and is making lots of loud noises in the background. So I'll be back. Excuse me.
So Emily, maybe you could start by, I guess, just giving us a little background. I know you have quite the background in education and your teaching career, but also, as a homeschool mother of 4 kids. And if you could just kind of introduce yourself. And
our oldest is turning 17 tomorrow. She's a junior, and she has homeschooled from the very beginning. And then we have 3 sons. One is almost 15, one is 11, and one is 8. And they had homeschooled since they were little. And then just recently in October, they were enrolled in school for the first time. And they're doing well. There was a little adjustment period because, when life changes, it can be hard on all of us, even kids. But they're doing really well with that now. And then now we're back to homeschooling, of course. They have some correspondence with their teachers, which is nice. But still, the dynamic of homeschooling is familiar for me. But I know it's so new for many of you. And my background, I was a public school teacher for 6 years at high school level. And then in my community, as a homeschool family, I've taught 4th through 6th grade and sophomores and freshmen. So I kind of have the gamut of elementary and high school. And but really, it's just born out of a love for kids and education. I'm passionate about education. I in no way feel that there's only one right way. I don't believe that homeschooling is the only way. Sometimes it's what we're called to, and in this season, we're all called to it to some degree. But one of the things that I wanted to share uh, is about not judging one another, not comparing ourselves to what others do. Leah is very gifted in art and design and creative, and she posted the other day about how you baked bread and you guys had done some other neat activities, some art things with your kids. And it's very easy in social media for any of us as parents to go, oh shoot, I'm not doing all that. And we're just going to pick different priorities, and maybe we can be inspired to try something new on a different day that we hadn't tried before, but realize that none of us can do everything in a day, ever. And every summer, that before every year of homeschooling, I made this perfect little schedule of my ideal, here's what Bella's doing while Noah's working on this, and while I'm teaching advanced math, my little ones are going to be doing this stuff on their own. And that's all very theoretical, because in practice, there's not a day that has ever happened according to schedule. Never. So I would encourage more rhythms and routines over the firmness of a schedule. And maybe prioritizing what is important to your family. Like Leah and I were talking on the phone earlier today about how some families might, however we process life and stress in ways that nurture our souls and one another and our families, whether that be through art or music or sports or painting, gardening, being outside, having animals in our family that need to go for walks. We all have different priorities, and none that are of more value than another family's. But we may even decide that today my big priorities are these top 3, and then tomorrow I want to try something new, like bread baking. Sorry. So we planted a garden over the weekend, but that's not something we're particularly savvy at. So some families will be. I have 2 musicians in my family, and they need to practice their instruments every day. But my other 2 are not, they're not musicians, and so they have other priorities. And sometimes life happens where you might have a toothache and you have to work in a trip to the dentist, and that becomes number 1 priority, and everything else falls away. And that's okay too. I think that in this season, we're all being led to really, we have a that's unique to nurture our relationships. And if that is our highest and best priority of spending time together, our kids will not be failed. Our kids will thrive, and they will continue to learn and to grow and to develop. And the other big priority people to hear too is at least, and I have kind of a developmentalist perspective, that children learn by play, that it's the work of childhood, and more play, the better. Oh, hi, Mom. My mom. And so when we think about when people have homeschooled throughout the ages, whether that be in farming communities or people that have had to work overseas, we kind of get down to the basics. If we were really going to get down to the nuts and bolts of academics, we could just go right to the 3 R's of reading, writing, and practicing arithmetic with wherever your kids are. And honestly, that is enough. It is enough to have a little practice with reading, maybe even time on the couch, cuddled up, sharing a good book, which Heather and Leah and I have all talked about some links that we can share with our community about free audiobook resources or ebook resources, because this doesn't have to cost your family additional funds to do this well. There are lots of things that we can do in our homes without That's my
I
mom.
love that you really touched on something that I think is super important right now, and that is that even though we may be in this situation for the unforeseeable future of the school year, it's just the idea of rhythm, a daily rhythm versus a daily schedule. I totally fell victim to that first day. I'm like, all right, well, it's just, kind of my type A personality. Like we need to have a schedule. We're going to write it down. It was helpful for my littler one who's 5 to kind of see. I wrote down what we would be doing typically, with pictures to correspond to, learning time, creative time, that kind of stuff. But I have come to find that, perhaps it was a little too rigid. And so just feeling that sense of grace. And like you said, Emily, if you're in the middle of the day and one of your children is just enthralled in an art project, just because your so-called schedule says, oh, now it's time to move on to arithmetic, maybe that's not the best for their learning world right now. And maybe the best thing is that Noah? Judah.
Judah.
Hi, Judah. Maybe the best thing is to just allow them to get fully enthralled. And
we lost your sound there, Leah.
With parents, with siblings, and that ability to maybe just do the art project for 2 hours on end, and not have to go, oh, well, the bell's ringing, now it's time to move on to this, so right. There is a blessing there.
I agree. And it develops concentration instead of us having, these little we have such a soundbite life of blogs versus chapter books and little clips, little YouTube versus watching a full-length feature film, or our concentration gets broken up so much. And breaks are great, by the way. You may have one. He's passing me a note. Can I have a water? Everything's spelled correctly. Wait. Oh, and yeah, my door just came right off its hinges. It's okay. It's all right. Don't worry. Just leave it. Daddy will fix it later.
This is life.
Yeah, it's just life. That's right. And what I love about what you're saying about getting into an art project too is that kids, I'm wondering if other parents out there, I think we've all felt some stress over the changes that have taken place and the uncertainty and the lack of predictability that's gone on. And my kids have had some meltdowns and they've had some bad attitudes, and so have I. And so anything like art or going for a walk outside or cuddling with the family cat or dog that is nurturing to us, there has to be space for that. And one of the great things about homeschooling is flexibility. The school day doesn't really end at 3:00 when a homeschool family, and it doesn't necessarily start, and you just start looking for little opportunities to have a teachable moment through a conversation or an experience or a phone call with a grandparent or writing a letter or even making a grocery list or playing a game like Bananagrams was fun. We played a couple rounds of that yesterday, and it's an opportunity to practice spelling, and even my 8-year-old could play, and even my 17-year-old says, how do you spell this word? And it can be fun. It doesn't have to be all work. It doesn't have to feel like work to be educational and to really help us to grow.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think that's you hit on so many things that just feel so much better, and hopefully the other parents on this call and those that are going to be watching later feel that too.
Leah, we lost your sound again.
together with our kids, whether we're also balancing working from home, having one parent kind of take on the charge of homeschool while the other one works even more just to stay afloat right now. It's kind of our situation. And hopefully we can come out of this feeling like, you know, wow, I did get to spend all day with my child. We did bake bread, or we did manage to put in a little bit of math work, you know, but we also just got outside and just, you know, sang songs or whatever it was, you know, like maybe we can use this time to just really appreciate those simple things that can happen when you are at home, you know, and together. So thank you.
Hey, Emily, this is Casey. My question for you, is it, I was kind of reading about stuff that, you know, our kids go to school, right, for like 6 hours, but really in reality, like the actual quote unquote learning time when they're at home and more focused one-on-one, it doesn't have to be that long. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. I agree. And I think that even high school could be done in about 4 hours a day. And little ones, you know, maybe one for K, 1 hour to 2 hours max. On a kindergartner could be an hour. And that's not all at once. That's like 20 minutes of reading time and 5 or 10 minutes of math and some other, you know, types of learning activities that are woven in with breaks. And then my 5th grader, he has a pretty rigorous 5th grade schedule, in my opinion, but he still can get it in, you know, 3 hours, or it just depends on the kid and how self-directed they might be too. Some of them are, give me what I need to get done so that I can be free. Work to build. I have blocks that need to be knocked down with my Nerf gun. Things have to happen. So they want to get it hammered out and done. And then I have some that just drag it out. And I have one child in particular that does really well as long as I'm sitting right next to him. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be completely engaged in teaching him or showing him. Maybe I'm balancing the checkbook, but my presence helps him stay focused.
Yeah, I have one of each. I have one that does really well. I have twin boys that are in 1st grade. So one that does really well, like I can give him all the tasks and he finishes it. And then his brother definitely needs my help. And then he's crying because his brother is already done with everything because the other one's so distracted by the butterfly or the dog that walked by. Or I'm just trying to kind of figure out how to help him, help me manage, right, their 2 learning styles. Like I know their learning styles are so different, and how to make it so that we don't have tears for this foreseeable future, right? Because we're going to be at home.
And there are some tears. We had some tears with one yesterday, and he was very frustrated. And what we find is that in the middle of a meltdown, we don't learn. We cannot take instruction or learn something new or difficult when we're in the middle of a meltdown. We don't, as adults, we don't problem solve well. We're in the middle of a meltdown. And so there's so much learning that goes on with, okay, how are we going to get through this? I just sat and rubbed his back. And do you need a drink of water? Do you want to take a walk in the backyard? And then just explain that this is not going to be hard for you once you've calmed down. And yeah. Yeah,
we went and collected eggs yesterday in between the meltdown.
I love it. Yeah, you have chickens.
Yeah.
Can you hook me up with some eggs? I still can't
I don't have very many right now. I can't. I had one chicken. She was like sitting on the eggs like she wanted to hatch them. And I said, sorry, I can't hatch any eggs right now. We got to eat all these. Once I start, I do have 10 hens. So once I start getting eggs again, I don't know why I'm only getting like 3 a day. So, but yes, I will let you know. Once I'm getting more, I will certainly share.
Thank
Leah,
you.
I have sent your way too. We have some farmer friends that gave us some eggs, so we have some we can get over to you to fill the gap.
Spreading the wealth. You know, Casey, maybe I've been struggling with something similar. I mean, I don't have two kids in the same grade, but they both are definitely different levels. And even though what I thought was going to be our typical schedule, which now I'm using the term rhythm. Thank you, Emily. Our typical rhythm, you know, it was like I was going to have both of them kind of do their quote learning time at the same time. And now I've found that because Iris requires so much hands-on with me right now, since she's just pre-K, but she wants to be a part of this, you know, homeschool process that we're in. And I think it's great for her. She'll be really ready for school when we get there in the fall. But what I found is that I kind of divided up a little bit differently now. And maybe that will work for you too, is like when Lily's just, you know, doing some quiet reading or creative time, drawing, whatever, then that's when I'm one-on-one kind of working with Iris on some of her like sound flashcards and stuff like that. And because when I was doing them both at the same time, then me focusing on Iris was then distracting Lily from her work. And, you know, we're not in a perfect world, and it's going to be an ebb and flow. So maybe.
For sure. Yeah, maybe doing that. And then my other question too, so my boys are fairly advanced for their grade. Like I'm not concerned. I mean, I'm not overly concerned. So I don't really know, like our district hasn't really provided a whole bunch of math, which I know that they could use. Like, so do you have some sources that you could share?
Yes. My favorite right now is Khan Academy.
Okay, which we've done that, a little bit of that.
Okay. That's one of my favorites. I had a favorite. Well, I wanted to really point you all in directions that are free resources, but I have used another resource in the past that is called Dreambox, and it is it's very Common Core aligned. I know maybe people with all kinds of different opinions about all these things, but just since you asked specifically for math, I have some kids that are just really with math, and I needed to keep them engaged and challenged. And Dreambox is a resource that we've used in the past, and you can do at least a free trial. It's a subscription.
I'll look at it because I mean I'm assuming they'll go at this point where we'll continue at schools in the fall, and they're going to need that Common Core. I mean, as much as I'd love to teach them how I learned, right? Because that's makes it so much easier.
I know, and I could get on with math. I could get on board with both sides because I'm very much. I mean, we've done classical, traditional education, but I love math. I think that the more strategies that we can introduce to kids to make math make sense, the better. So I've loved Dreambox, but then again, we're not using that subscription now. And Khan Academy, my son who's taking algebra in high school was on Khan Academy this morning getting help with something. And so there are all kinds of and then math facts, right? Even though kids are little and they may not totally grasp the concept of multiplication being repeated addition. Sorry, I'm going to get on a little tiny math train, but I'll get off it soon too. But they can skip count, and that's fun because little kids love to memorize all kinds of things and sing songs. So even counting by twos or counting by threes, that will help to reinforce later that multiplication is repeated addition, and it can be helpful, and it's fun, and it's really painless. And then they can even memorize math facts even as little guys, for sure. Math is fun. There are lots of things that we can do with math, right? We can even double a chocolate chip cookie recipe.
You're awesome. I love it. Yeah, I think, Casey, I think a lot of us, you know, are in this boat where, you know, if we're hopeful that school starts back up in the fall, what does that look like? And, you know, I just wonder, Emily, if you have any thoughts on it, if anyone feels like jumping in on this too. It's, you know, it's kind of a crazy world to think about, how that will be resumed, what grades everyone falls in,
Right.
what kind of testing will be necessary, if
I
so.
think there's going to be so many kids that I mean, I worked in my boys' class, and my boys are fine. I'm not concerned about them moving forward, but there's lots of kids that really needed this instruction, and their parents possibly aren't going to be able to help bridge the gap. And so in the next coming years, like how much are those kids going to be behind that really needed this instruction?
No.
And who knows, it's possible that, and that leadership in our community, they may decide to have some summer school opportunities to make up some time, and hopefully they will do some things that will advocate for kids to catch up, and that would be a help to parents as well. So who knows? And maybe we'll, I don't know what they're going to do, right? They may extend the school year.
Well, they've already told us that for elementary, starting April 20th, we're doing distance learning, but that's still over a month off for us. And then we will be done with school May 29th, which was the original traditional schedule.
Okay.
But that's still missing a month of instruction.
Yeah.
And how, you know, we're still trying to get everything out, all the Chromebooks, and do all that stuff. I feel bad for anyone who's a senior this year.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah, that's really hard. SATs and prom and all the things.
Yeah,
right.
Gone.
Right.
Yeah, and then also one thing, not to totally switch subjects, because we could commiserate on what if for a long time. But, you know, I was talking with Emily about how, you know, typically if you were to say, okay, I'm going to be a homeschool mom now, or a homeschool dad, you know, you typically have so many more resources out there in terms of extracurriculars.
She's frozen.
Yeah.
We lost Leah for a minute.
You know, wait, where's swim lessons, and where's, you know, what's going on? I don't know if anyone's feeling similar about that, but, you know, like Emily was saying earlier, is just incorporating more of that, the family togetherness and new enrichments. Like, we're going to try planting our spring garden together. Might not be good at it, but let's just, you know, and why not try baking bread, or this new recipe and doubling the cookie batch, like you said. So it is a very interesting time that we don't
I think
have.
it is good in some sense. I'm looking forward to being able to kind of bring some alternative things in front of the boys that they wouldn't normally get, right? You know, we're going to learn some meditation and some other things that are kind of just to kind of help balance everything that's going on. So I am looking forward to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. You know, things that they would never even be able to cram into the, you know, current curriculum of a normal school situation, you know, like, yeah, my girls are doing a daily yoga, Cosmic Kids on YouTube, and it's just fabulous, you know, and that's a part of their rhythm, and they love it. And it's a great thing you can do if it's a rainy day, or just not a desirable out day, but it's good to take walks. We've been really enjoying that when it's nice. I love this movement of, you know, doing children's chalk art on your walks, and just spreading positivity. And I mean, on St. Patrick's Day, I think there were a bunch of families that were having their children draw shamrocks and put them in the windows of their homes, so that as you go for walks in the neighborhood, you can spot the shamrocks. There are so many really positive things about this that we could definitely focus on, in terms of.
My boys are loving Draw with Stacy. Have you seen that on Facebook Live? She's out of West Sacramento. She does like a session every day.
Draw with Stacy.
And it's at a different, yes, you just go onto Facebook. She's got a Facebook group. They're loving it. Because today it's at 1 o'clock. They keep reminding me, Mom, it's at 1 o'clock today. It's at 1 o'clock today. I'm like, okay, let's get all your stuff done. We'll eat lunch. And they're totally loving that. And it's not something that is my strength, because, it's really cool that someone else is doing this and teaching them how to spend time drawing that they don't get during class, their normal curriculum.
Yeah, I love all the access that we have through social media and all these people that are stepping forward to teach these classes in light of this situation. My girls have been doing doodles with Mo, lunchtime doodles with Mo Willems. That one's super fun.
Oh, my boys would love that. They love those books.
Yeah, you have to do it. He's in his studio.
Okay.
He does it every single day at 1, but you can go back at any time, because all the videos
on Facebook or YouTube?
Both, but
okay.
You can definitely find it on YouTube. And he's just in there talking about going through how storyboards are made, how books are published, and then even going into, well, let's figure out how do I draw piggy or elephant?
Right. Oh, they would love that.
Yeah, definitely check that out.
Okay.
Yeah, and for older kids, I'll jump in just real quick here. I was homeschooled through a charter school from 4th grade through 11th grade, and it turned out great. Went to college, got a master's degree, the whole deal. But I think I definitely have my parents to thank in part for that, because they both worked the entire time I was homeschooled, and something that they did was they definitely included me in their daily work, not like all the time or whatever, but they saw those learning opportunities even as I was older. So my dad is a landscape designer and landscaper, and he, helped teach me geometry by taking me out on his job sites and like measuring sites, calculating what the distance between one corner is and another. My mom is a nurse, and like the medical books were just like free access, in our house. So they weren't physicists or whatever. They each had their individual skills, just like all of the rest of us adults. So whatever your profession is, like there are things that you learned in school and then you self-taught yourself later that you can definitely pass on to your kids, especially your older kids. Like if you're in business, there'll be possibly aspects of finance or accounting or marketing. All of those things are incredibly valuable, and it also gives your kid a taste of what comes next. So you don't have to have them like be with you all the time and drive you crazy though, but they might appreciate being included in your work from home time. So
totally.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you.
Yeah.
That's
utilizing
utilizing our strengths, right?
Pardon?
Go ahead. I was just saying, utilizing our strengths.
Yes, exactly. And we were going to share some other resources that are like Box is a free website, that shares audiobooks and downloadable ebooks. And we're going to link to it in the program notes. I think Heather is going to do that. And also has a stories series that it can be streamed. You don't have to have a subscription or pay anything to use their stories series. And they're generally public domain, some classics. But I found a couple that our family had enjoyed years ago that I wanted to dredge up, because my younger ones probably haven't heard Boxcar Children or The Railway Children or Heidi or some of these classics, and you can listen to them on audiobook and while you're making dinner. And then one of the neat things about building relationships with our families, with our kids through books, is that we can then talk about it and talk about the protagonist and what is it he or she or it was trying to accomplish, and what was coming against them and keeping them from achieving it. You can build a whole conversation, which is a great pre-real and great literary analysis. And I want to share, I'll put it also, I'll share it with Heather to share in the notes, or I'll figure out how to do it. Sarah Mackenzie has built this entire platform she calls the Read Aloud Revival. She has 6 kids, and she says if you can only get to one thing in a day, have it be reading aloud with your children. And then building great connections and conversations through books. And she links to all kinds of great resources that are picture books, chapter books, books that kids can read independently. So Sarah Mackenzie is great. She's a published author, and she has a book called Teaching from Rest. It's very popular in some of the homeschooling circles too, because we can't do it all. And that idea of being from a place of rest and peace, and not just this crazy frenetic, can't keep up with everything pace, and slowing down and sharing a book together. As I was listening to Casey and Leah share these resources in our community with drawing, I thought with Zoom, we could have family book clubs. We could read something like Charlotte's Web that every age can enjoy. And then we could come together and maybe over a mealtime connect on Zoom and say, what is your favorite story? What did you find exciting? And what did you like? What did you dislike? And hear the kids share, because it's really great to hear what kids are thinking about the stories. And it's one of the fun parts of homeschooling too, is really just to listen to their points of view as well.
Awesome.
Are there any of our other participants who have questions, comments about your experience in this space being new?
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Ed.
Well,
I think
I would say for us, our little ones are tiny, 2 and 4. But songs, to reinforce that point, songs have really been key in keeping a rhythm, not a schedule, to your other point, but keeping a rhythm and just making those transitions. The songs make the transitions possible. Because otherwise, it's trying to interact with the tar baby otherwise.
That's really great. I've been enjoying a book called Something They Will Not Forget by Joshua Gibbs. He's a high school teacher, but talks about the importance of what we remember versus what we forget from. We may have got an A in a biology class, and then the next year forget all of those body systems and what we learn. But things that children learn through songs stick with them for a lifetime. And they can learn states and capitals, and all that stuff can be found online pretty easily. Like skip counting or memorizing all kinds of good information, or poetry can be in song, or a lot of tradition that gets passed down that is worthy of sharing with our kids. Maybe even teaching them songs that we knew as kids that maybe I can remember songs being grade school. Maybe you guys can too. It'd be fun to share those with our kids in this time.
I love it.
So, have you guys come up with any ways to take care of science experiments or anything like that? Like nothing big. I mean, can you go into maybe how you've handled science and cooking or science and gardening?
Yeah. My microscope is out on loan right now to a friend that is teaching biology, but that's all right. But yeah, with the garden, there's so much, even for the little kids. There's a lot of patience involved too, right? Waiting for those seeds to germinate. And then Kai, one of my kids, is doing a report on a state, on Virginia, and we were looking up facts about the dogwood tree, but I couldn't find it in the Western Garden book because, Leah, it's in Latin, and so I had to find the plant name in Latin first. All of you landscape architect people. I'm like, wait, where do I find the dogwood? It's not under D. so that's fun. Even just using resources that you might have on your shelf, like probably a lot of us have that Sunset Western Garden book or a bird book. That's a really fun way. I don't know how you guys feel about getting out and hiking at places like Cosumnes River Preserve or FEA, or, I know we need to keep that social distancing, but our family went out to Lake Natoma Loop in Folsom over the weekend, and we'd like to maybe get out and see some snow, maybe have a snow day, a real snow day from school. But if you might have a bird book, a bird watching book, that's another fun way to incorporate science. And a lot of homeschool families enjoy nature journaling. You can just take some colored pencils and draw a picture of what you see, whether that's a plant. It's a very classical approach to learning about plants and animals, to draw what you see and observe and attend to that. And then or even now we've got, phone devices that are cameras. We can take pictures and create a journal, and we're really making memories with our kids with these experiences as well. Yeah, nature journaling would be fun. And just getting out there and playing, I think that's good too. Find a 4-leaf clover.
Emily, how do you balance? You have 4 kids and they're all different ages. How do you balance kind of their various learning levels or grades, if you will? I'm always like, how, this last week, I'm just like, how do you do it?
I love what you said, Leah, about what you found worked and didn't work with sharing. I've tried, let's all sit at the table and do math together, and it's been sort of a catastrophe because everyone has a question. Something with reading, language, and like a language arts kind of assignment, or math. They're very specific to that kid's level. Mm-hmm. There are some things that you can do as a group, like maybe a read aloud, a chapter book, a history kind of a thing, or science. But then some of it is just a juggling act. Like you said, one can work on something independently while you work with, especially if we're teaching a young one to read, that just takes time and practice. Little bite-sized pieces, maybe a couple times a day, but maybe not for more than 10 or 20 minutes, depending on the age of your child. So that one-on-one time, they just need that. And then my older ones, they've been at it they work rather independently, and they resurface when they're hungry. and we come together and eat and make a new mess. And but yeah, it's the younger ones. It's a lot more challenging with the younger ones when you have multiple children. But again, when it comes to some of those subjects, it's really okay if you don't get to them every day. I like science and history. They could be. You don't have to have an. I think that if we'd really try to focus on reading and writing and math, because if any of you have joined in later, even in small bite-sized pieces, it is enough. It really is enough. And with writing, they don't always have to be composing. They could be composing verbally, and we could be their scribe, That works really well for young ones that have ideas that they want to put to words, but maybe they don't have the skill set yet. And another thing that I find works really well with little ones is copy work. It's very classical, but it could just be like maybe they want to write a letter to grandma and they dictate it to you, but then maybe they just copy one sentence in their own handwriting. Just depending on the level of the kid. I'm thinking like pre-K, kinder, even first graders and probably early second graders can do copy work. And then older ones that might be wanting to learn cursive. I don't know if they still teach that in the public schools. They teach it at my kids' school. We teach cursive, but not everybody does.
That's awesome.
And that's okay. Don't take that on. Throw it off.
My kids want to learn because they don't teach cursive anymore. So I guess I could take this time.
Yeah, they could, even if it's just writing their own name.
Oh my gosh, they're dying to learn. They're practicing already how to write. I see there's some art on the counter right here, and Paul has written his name in cursive.
Oh, I love it. It sounds like you have very artistic kids.
I do. I'm very lucky. Like I said, I'm not concerned that my boys are not in school right now. I know that they'll be fine. I know that they are totally good to go and that we've given them a good base. And I'm just sad for the other kids that are really going to struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully.
Emily, I have a question.
Although they are outside right now throwing the ball at each other, and wrestling. Oh.
Good.
Yep.
Question,
They'll do that. Hey, so to what extent, given you have 4 kids, to what extent do you encourage or facilitate knowledge transfer from the older kids to the younger kids?
It depends on the day. Right now, my older ones, they have some pretty rigorous requirements and they just need time to get those things done. But in the middle grades, like when I had middle school age, it was easier to have them work together. Like in fact, one year I took on a tutoring job, and I had time, and my oldest son at the time, he was an 8th grader, and he could just hammer through his work and get it all done. And I hired him to tutor his youngest brother in something. I can't remember what it was now. It might have been, I think it was a phonics book. He would do something with his phonics book with him, read the instructions, but it could be math. And so definitely I had a sweet spot where I had an older child who was able to help a younger child, and it helped me to, I was teaching sophomores and my daughter was in that group, and I just was spread too thin. And I think it was good for their relationship for the most part, but there were times when I had to say, okay, if you're losing your patience, then you have to take a break, because if it's not a positive experience, we're not going to continue. But yeah, even kids reading aloud to the family dog or a stuffed animal or a sibling is great. And the older ones can read to the younger ones, and even the younger ones can read to the older ones, and they can learn to get along or share in making a meal together. The older ones help the younger ones. If I have a small business as well, and so sometimes I'm a little unavailable, and I have a tendency to take on a little bit more than maybe I ought to. But yeah, that's just me. But yeah, we muddle through, and it doesn't always look perfect. In fact, it rarely does. And I think Leah asked a question about how do you help them all? Sometimes it's just really a mess. Sometimes it's just like, hold on, I'm helping this child, I'm helping your brother, give me 30 minutes, find something to do, and then I will be there to help you. And then I need to try to follow through with what I said, that I would be available to help the next one. And they do get a little bit less. They get less on the one hand, but they get more in another way. You know, they're not in a group of 25 or 30 students, and they get me, and I love them the most. So they're definitely going to be trade-offs. It's going to be imperfect, but it's going to be enough. And yeah, and sometimes we as parents need breaks too. Sometimes you have to schedule your shower right in the middle of the day just so that you can take a break from the people.
It's so true.
Or go for a run. I mean, I have older ones, so I can leave my little ones with the older ones. But it wasn't always that way. It would be, you know, when the daddy man walks through the door, I'm like, peace out. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are seasons, and this is a season, friends, right? I mean, we don't have to. There will be a new normal again another time, and our challenge is to make the most of this season in building great memories with our kids. They will never forget this season, the time we stayed home from school when there was a global pandemic, and all the things that we did. Because it's what is out of the ordinary. Sometimes our kids remember traditions, right, that we do over and over again. But sometimes it's really those unique things that were out of the ordinary. Remember the time when, that they will always remember this. Yeah.
So true. Yeah. Well, thank you, Emily. I feel like this has just been just
Heather.
Really helpful to just all come together. I mean, we're a collective community, and it's so nice to know there are resources there for everyone. And like you said, free resources. And more importantly, I think my takeaway is just that this, you know, if we can just look at this as in a positive light, and that is this like very unique moment in time, this season where we get to have just total togetherness. And hopefully in this kind of scary place, we find families coming together even more than they ever have, children and parents learning about each other more than they ever have, and that, you know, all the things that we think they aren't getting, you know, the day to day with the teacher and with their classmates and stuff, they're getting totally different things now. You know, the daily walk, or, you know, taking the dog out and, you know, doing nature walks and journaling and all these things. There's just so many positives we can find. So I feel much better about just, you know, facing this head on, but in a way